My mother-in-law slapped me over the breadbasket. Not across a kitchen, not in some private family hallway where everyone could pretend it had been stress or misunderstanding later. In a packed restaurant, on a Saturday night, with 3 servers, 2 bartenders, and half a dining room looking straight at us. The place was loud right up until her hand hit my face. Then it wasn't. For one clean second, all I could hear was the ring in my left ear and the soft clink of my husband setting his fork down like the thing bothering him most was the noise. "Know your place," Darlene Porter hissed. My cheek burned instantly. Not dramatic, not cinematic, just hot, sharp, humiliating in that horribly physical way public disrespect always is. I didn't cry. That mattered to her more than most people would understand. Darlene loved tears. The tears let her become the calmer woman in the room, the reasonable one, the elder dealing with an over-emotional younger wife. She had built her whole life on that trick. So I set my napkin down beside my untouched entree, stood up, picked up my bag, and walked away. Behind me, I heard my husband Callum say my name once. Not loudly, not urgently, just enough to make it sound later, like he had tried. He had not. By the time I reached the sidewalk outside, my face was still stinging, and my hands had gone cold in that familiar way they do when your body understands something before your pride does. The slap hadn't actually started that dinner. The paperwork had. For 3 weeks, Callum and his mother had been pushing what they kept calling a simple title update. Just a housekeeping change, Darlene said. Just smart family planning, Callum said. Just adding your husband properly so no one has to untangle things later. The thing they wanted updated was my house, a 3-bedroom craftsman in Tacoma that my Aunt Louise left me 5 years before I married Callum. It was never marital property, never shared, never inherited through him. Aunt Louise put it in a trust first, then into my name outright after the probate cleanup. I paid the taxes. I paid for the sewer line replacement. I paid to keep the roof from caving in after the February storm 2 years ago. When Callum moved in after we got married, he moved into my house. Darlene never accepted that. She called it strange, cold, unbalanced. She said a real wife didn't keep her husband living in her mercy. What she meant was simpler. Her son hated that the only solid asset in the marriage wasn't his. Ma, things got worse when Callum's gym partnership started failing 6 months ago. Not a total collapse at first, just missed vendor payments, then late payroll, then one of his partners quietly leaving. Darlene began talking about protecting the family in that soft voice she used when she wanted theft to sound like planning. Then she found out my house had no mortgage. That was when the pressure changed shape. Suddenly, the simple title update had to happen quickly. There was temporary financing to secure, a bridge line to stabilize, a family recovery plan. Every sentence somehow ended at my deed. I told Callum no more than once. I told him if he needed financial triage for his business, we could look at real options with real disclosures. And we were not sliding him onto title because his mother thought marriage should come with automatic access to equity. He sulked. Darlene escalated, and then she invited us to dinner to calm things down, which is how I ended up in that restaurant while she pushed a cream envelope across the table and asked in front of my husband, "Did you sign yet?" I said no. Callum stared at his plate. Darlene said, "You are married to my son. That house should be securing this family, not sitting in your name like a threat." I said, "My house is not collateral for your panic." That was when she slapped me. Outside on the sidewalk, I stood there for maybe 30 seconds before I unlocked my car. I didn't go back. I didn't answer when Callum called. I drove home, went straight to the kitchen, opened the envelope she had tried to make me sign at dinner, and laid every page out under the pendant light. At first glance, it looked like exactly what they said it was: a deed package, signature page, notary acknowledgement, borrower information sheet. Then I got to the second page. At the top right corner was an electronic recording cover stamp. Not blank, Completed. Instrument reference number already assigned. My stomach dropped. I sat down and read it again, slower. The deed wasn't merely prepared, it had already been submitted. It purported to transfer title from me alone to me and Callum as tenants by the entirety. And beneath that, clipped behind the deed, was a preliminary loan package from Cascadia Heritage Bank. Borrower, Callum Porter. Co-borrower, Sienna Porter. Collateral, my house. I did not sleep much that night. At 8:13 the next morning, I was in the office of Renata Vale, a real estate litigator my aunt had used once during the trust cleanup. I handed her the envelope, told her exactly what happened at dinner, and watched her go, still halfway through the deed page. "Did you sign this?" she asked. "No." "Did you ever authorize electronic submission?" "No." She turned the page toward me and tapped the signature line. It had my name on it. It was not my handwriting, not close. Renata logged into the county recorder portal while I sat there, with my cheek still faintly pink from my mother-in-law's hand. 3 minutes later, she found the recording. Accepted at 4:46 p.m., the day before the dinner. Recorded before Darlene even slid the envelope across the table. Renata kept clicking. Then she found the worst part. When the recorded deed had already been used overnight to support an emergency commercial line request tied to Callum's gym and personally guaranteed by Darlene's event company. They had not invited me to dinner to discuss paperwork. They had invited me to dinner after the fraud was already in motion. Renata reached for her phone. "I'm filing an immediate title fraud affidavit, recorder challenge and lender notice." I nodded once. By the time I left her office, the first emails had already gone out. By that evening, I still hadn't heard from Callum. But at exactly 7:32 p.m., almost 24 hours after Darlene slapped me in that restaurant, I looked down at my phone and saw 17 missed calls, all from her. Then one voicemail came through. I played it on speaker. Her voice was tight. No sweetness, no superiority left. "Say, Sienna," she said, "you need to call me back before the bank freezes everything." I did not call her back. Not after the first voicemail, not after the second, and definitely not after the 9th missed call, when her messages stopped sounding offended and started sounding afraid. Renata told me to let the panic ripen. That was her exact phrase. People who bully in public usually confess in private. The second paperwork stops going the way they expected, she said. I was back in her office by 8 the next morning, coffee untouched in my hand, while she walked me through the sequence she had already set in motion. First, she filed a title fraud affidavit with the county recorder, attaching a copy of the forged deed, my specimen signatures from the trust transfer years earlier. Went in a sworn declaration that I never executed any transfer to Callum. Second, she served Cascadia Heritage Bank's fraud and collateral departments, with notice that any reliance on the recorded deed was disputed, that the signature was forged, and that any lending action tied to my house now carried actual knowledge of possible fraud. Third, she contacted the notary whose seal appeared on the deed. That part was already interesting. "The notary called me back at 6:40 this morning," Renata said, sliding a note across the desk. "She says she never met you, never notarized this deed, and reported her stamp missing 2 months ago." I stared at the paper. Missing. According to her, yes. For 1 second, I just sat there listening to the hum of Renata's office heat and the traffic outside and trying to absorb the fact that Darlene had not merely pushed too hard. She had built an actual fraud package, stolen notary seal, forged deed, emergency loan request, slap at dinner to force the last inch of compliance after the real damage was already done. "How far did they get with the bank?" I asked. Renata turned her monitor toward me. Cascadia Heritage's collateral intake portal showed the line request had not funded. Status: conditional review. Hold placed pending title verification. I felt my shoulders drop for the first time since dinner. They didn't get the money. "Not yet," Renata said, but they got far enough to create danger, and that's why your mother-in-law is panicking." She clicked into a second email chain. Well, the bank had responded overnight requesting immediate confirmation of occupancy, marital interest, and borrower authority because the emergency line had been flagged by an internal reviewer. Why? Because the deed had been recorded less than 12 hours before the loan request, the collateral owner had never appeared in person, and the borrower's business entity had recent distress indicators on public filings. That combination got attention. Then Renata showed me the line that made the whole thing snap into focus. The bank had also requested a payoff statement on 2 existing obligations, personally tied to Darlene's event company. I looked up. "Her company?" Renata nodded. "Your husband's gym wasn't the only problem." Of course it wasn't. Now, Darlene had spent the last year performing stability in silk blouses and perfect lipstick while whispering that I should act like a wife. All that time, she'd apparently been using her event business to prop up Callum's collapsing gym. And once both of them started slipping, my house became the bridge they thought they could walk across. Only now the bridge was screaming. My phone buzzed face down on the desk. Darlene again, then Callum, then Darlene. Renata glanced at the screen. "Answer your husband, not her." So I did. Callum didn't say hello. "What did you do?" There it was. No "are you okay?" No apology for the restaurant. No shame over the deed. Just that. I put him on speaker and said, "I told the truth." His voice was low and furious in the way cowards get when they're alone and losing. The bank froze the line. My operating account got flagged. My mother's vendor reserve got hit too. Renata wrote one word on her yellow pad and turned it toward me. "Good. You forged my name onto a deed," I said. "I didn't forge anything." "Then who did?" Silence. That was answer enough. He tried again, shifting tone. "Sienna, listen to me. We were going to clean it up. The deed was just to get us through a temporary squeeze." I laughed once. "You recorded my house into your name before dinner." "Into our names." "No," I said. "Into fraud." He exhaled hard. "My mother thought if you saw the paperwork in front of you, you'd stop being stubborn and just sign the final copies." "The final copies?" Renata repeated softly and wrote another note. He knows there were versions I felt cold all over. There had been drafts, edits, multiple passes. And this wasn't some drunken panic at a printer. They had worked this thing. Callum realized too late what he'd said. "Sienna, don't," I said. "Just answer one question. Were you planning to tell me the deed was already recorded before she hit me?" "Nothing." "Then, she shouldn't have done that." Not "I'm sorry," not "I stopped her." She shouldn't have done that, which meant he knew exactly what had happened. I hung up. Renata saved the call note immediately. That helps. How? He just admitted knowledge of an already recorded deed and referred to final copies. His wording places him inside the sequence. My phone rang again before she finished the sentence. "Darlene." Renata nodded once. "Now answer her." I put the call on speaker. This time Darlene opened with my name so tightly it almost sounded like a crack in glass. "Sienna, you need to stop whatever your lawyer filed." "You slapped me in public," I said. "We are long past stop." "That bank is overreacting," she snapped. "All they had to do was fund the line and let us replace the signed pages." Renata and I looked at each other. Replace the signed pages. Not locate. Not verify. Replace. There it was. Darlene kept going, too scared now to protect her own wording. "If they refer this upstairs, Callum's gym goes under, my company gets cross-defaulted, and they may call the county about the recording sequence." I said nothing. She filled the silence because people like her always do. "It was a family title correction," she said. "That's all this was." Renata leaned toward the phone and said for the first time, "Mrs. Porter, this is Renata Vale. It was not a correction. On it was a forged instrument used to support a commercial lending request. Do not call my client again unless you enjoy recorded admissions." Darlene hung up so fast it was almost a yelp. Renata wrote for another few seconds, then closed the file. "They are in deeper than they planned," she said. "The question now is whether they panic into retreat or panic into something dumber." I didn't even have to ask. At 11:19, my phone lit up with a text from our next-door neighbor, Mrs. Huang. "Your husband and his mother are at your house. They're in the driveway with boxes. Should I call someone?" I sent Mrs. Huang one message back. "Don't confront them. Just record. We're on our way." Renata was already grabbing her coat. "Do not call him first," she said as we headed for the parking garage. People destroy better evidence when they have warning." That sentence sat with me the entire drive home. Destroy better evidence. Because that was exactly what it felt like now. Not a marriage argument. Not even a property fight. Something uglier. Faster. More organized. A group of people trying to outrun a paper trail. Mrs. Huang texted again while we were at a light. They brought banker boxes. "Your husband is carrying things from the office. His mother has your mail. My mail." I showed the screen to Renata. "She's trying to control the correspondence," Renata said. "Bank notices, county notices, lender calls. Same instinct as the deed filing." When we turned onto my street, Darlene's white SUV was in my driveway behind Callum's truck. The garage door was open. The front door was open too, not wide, just enough to tell me they weren't worried about appearances anymore. Mrs. Huang was on her porch in a cardigan, phone in hand, pretending to water a plant that did not need water. Good woman. I got out before Renata fully parked. Darlene was in my kitchen when I stepped through the front door, standing over my island with 2 stacks of opened envelopes and one of my blue office file folders. She looked up like I was the rude one. "Oh, good," she said. "Now maybe we can stop this ridiculous spiral." I didn't answer her. I looked past her. Callum was in my office at the end of the hall, file drawer open, home printer lifted halfway off the credenza, my portable scanner already in one of the banker boxes. That hit harder than the mail, because people only take machines when the machines remember things. "What are you doing?" I asked. Callum set the printer down too fast. "Getting my work equipment." "That isn't your equipment. It's in our house." "No," I said, "it's in my house." Darlene gave a tired sigh. "Stop performing ownership in front of your lawyer. We're trying to protect what can still be protected." Renata stepped in then, calm as ever. "Good," she said, "because I'd hate to think you were here removing devices after notice of a forged deed claim." Neither of them answered. That silence was louder than most screaming. I took out my phone and started recording openly. Callum saw it and his whole face changed. "Seriously?" "Yes," I said. "Seriously." He walked toward me, hands open in that fake peaceful way men use when they're one sentence away from becoming physical and want witnesses to remember only the posture. "Sienna, listen. When the bank flagged the first package, 'We can fix this if you stop making it adversarial.'" The first package. Renata and I looked at each other, then back at him. "You had more than one?" she asked. Callum froze for half a second. Darlene jumped in too quickly. "He means the intake copy." "No," Renata said. "He didn't." Callum swore softly. And that was when I saw it. On my desk, half under a legal pad, was a cream sheet with my name written on it over and over in different pressure lines. Sienna Porter, Sienna Hale Porter, Sienna L. Porter, practice signatures. Not elegant, not hidden, just there. I stepped past Callum and picked it up. He reached for it. "Give me that." I moved it behind me. Renata said very quietly, "Don't touch her." No one breathed for a second. Then Darlene did the dumbest thing she could have done. And she looked straight at the banker box in the hall and snapped, "Forget the practice sheet. Get the stamp page and the clean acknowledgement before they start photographing everything." She actually said it, out loud, into my phone. Callum closed his eyes, not in guilt, in frustration, because his mother had just stopped being careful. Renata was already moving toward the office printer. Good, she said. Now let's see what this device remembers. Callum tried to step in front of her. That's private. She held up one hand. No, what's private is privileged communication. What's sitting on that touch panel is likely evidence. And she was right. The printer screen was still awake. Recent scan jobs, recent print jobs, a full list with timestamps. I felt my stomach drop as I read them. Sienna deed, final Sienna notary, Act Cascadia collateral packet, borrower signature page, clean recorder cover, updated all from the day before, all created from my home office, all still sitting in recent history because Callum hadn't been fast enough yet. Darlene took one step toward the printer. Turn it off, she hissed to Callum. Renata turned to me. Photograph every screen, every line. I did, fast. Hands steady. Mrs. Huang had come to the doorway behind us now, bold as anything. I got the driveway too, she said, her unloading the boxes, him carrying the printer cable. Darlene rounded on her. This is none of your business. Mrs. Huang didn't blink. You made it everyone's when you slapped her in public. For the first time since the restaurant, Darlene looked rattled. Then my office landline rang. In a line almost nobody used anymore. 3 sharp rings. I stared at it. So did Renata. Then she said, "Answer it." I picked up. A woman's voice came through, clipped and formal. Is this Sienna Porter? This is Mara Kent with Cascadia Heritage Collateral Fraud. I'm at your front walk with county recording compliance, and I need to know immediately whether the people currently inside your house are the same ones who submitted the deed package. I told Mara Kent to come in. She stepped through my front door with a slim laptop bag and a county recording compliance officer beside her, a man named Elias Voss, who carried a hard case and looked exactly like someone who had spent too many years reading lies formatted as PDFs. The second Mara saw Darlene, Callum, the open banker boxes, and my printer still glowing in the office. Then her expression changed from concern to confirmation. So it's them, she said. Callum tried to recover first. This is private marital property. Mara didn't even look at him when she answered. No, this is disputed collateral tied to a potentially fraudulent instrument that touched my bank before funding. Step away from the office. That stopped him more effectively than shouting would have. Elias set the hard case on my dining table, opened it, and pulled out a small document scanner, evidence sleeves, and what looked like a county-issued field tablet. He glanced once at the recent job list on my printer screen, then at the practice signature sheet in my hand and said, "Good, nobody touched the panel." Darlene found her voice. This is outrageous. We were trying to gather personal items before this turned uglier. Renata answered her. Then you picked a strange moment to collect a printer full of forged deed jobs. Mara had already opened her laptop and was working through Cascadia's collateral portal with terrifying speed. The emergency line remains unfunded, she said, but your deed package triggered 3 holds by 9 this morning. Signature mismatch, same-day collateral shift, and a failed owner verification check. I looked at her. Failed? She nodded. Someone answered the owner verification callback, but when our reviewer asked for the last 4 digits of the county tax account and the month the roof work was completed, the answers were wrong. I turned slowly toward Darlene. Her face didn't change. That told me enough. She had tried to impersonate me on the bank call. Mara kept going. Then, after the second review, was someone called back from a different number, insisting the owner was too emotional to participate and that the husband had full authority under the newly recorded deed. There it was again. Too emotional. The same language from the restaurant, the same logic under the slap, the same justification for stealing first and explaining later. Elias spoke for the first time. County recording has a parallel concern. He connected the field tablet to the county portal, typed in the instrument number, and brought up the recorded deed metadata. E-record package submitted at 4:46 p.m. yesterday, he said. Originating account was not a title company and not a law office. It was filed through a remote submitter credential tied to an independent mobile notary service. Renata frowned. Now, the notary whose stamp was reported stolen? Yes, Elias said, which means whoever used her seal also used or accessed her e-record submitter credentials. Callum tried indignation. So, blame the notary. Elias turned the screen toward him. Hard to do that when the upload source device matches the same residential IP block your bank packet came from. The room went quiet. I felt my pulse in my throat. Residential IP block. My house. Not because I had done it. Because they had done it here. In my office, on my printer, on my internet. Renata said very softly, "You recorded a forged deed from her home before dinner." Callum didn't answer. Darlene did. It was a family correction. Mara actually laughed once. "Mrs. Porter, banks don't call it a correction when you try to borrow against a home using a deed recorded less than 12 hours earlier with a stolen notary seal after failing owner verification." Mrs. Huang, still heroically planted near the doorway, said, "I knew she was trouble." No one disagreed. Elias began photographing everything in order. Printer screen, banker boxes, practice signatures, opened mail, the blue office folder. Then he stopped at one loose page inside the top box and held it up with 2 fingers. A checklist. Typed. Short. Deed recorded loan intake owner. Call route to D if pushback. Final wet pages, move house mail. My stomach dropped. Owner call route to D. Darlene. There was no wiggle room left in that line, no marital misunderstanding, no family sloppiness, just process. Callum saw it too and muttered, "Mom," she snapped, "or stop talking." Too late. Renata took the sheet from Elias and slid it into a clear sleeve. That one matters. Mara's phone buzzed. She checked it and looked up. Collateral committee just escalated. They want certified confirmation from county compliance and a sworn owner statement today. They're also preparing a fraud referral. Callum went pale. A referral to who? Mara's voice stayed flat. Depends how bad the county side reads. Elias answered that part for her. Bad enough so far. He clicked into one more screen on the county portal, then froze. Not theatrically. Just still. "What?" I asked. He zoomed in and turned the tablet toward Renata and me. Attached to the deed submission packet behind the forged transfer page was an owner occupancy affidavit I had never seen. On it stated that I had confirmed Callum as co-owner and consented to immediate use of the property as collateral for temporary business stabilization. My name was on the signature line, not my signature, and under it, in a different block, was a witness certification. Witness. Darlene Porter. She had not just slapped me after the fraud, she had witnessed it. Mara looked at Darlene. "You signed as witness on a deed support affidavit for a borrower package submitted to a federally insured bank." Darlene's composure finally cracked. "I signed as his mother, to help my son." Renata said, "You signed as part of the fraud chain." Callum ran a hand through his hair. "This is spiraling because you won't just let us fix it." I stared at him. Fix it. That was what he called recording my house away from me, routing bank calls to his mother, Orson dragging boxes through my office while my cheek still remembered her hand. Mara closed the laptop. "No, it's spiraling because you mistook a deed for a family suggestion." Then Elias's county tablet pinged. He opened the alert, read one line, and looked directly at me. "The recorder's office just found a second pending submission attempt," he said. "Queued this morning, not yet accepted." My whole body went cold. "For what?" He tapped the screen once. "A corrective deed," he said. "Backdated, purporting to fix the transfer chain before the bank's freeze hit." "A corrective deed?" I said. Elias nodded once. "Queued from the same remote submitter credential family. Same property, same parties, different transfer language." He opened the pending image. This one was worse. when the first forged deed had moved title from me alone into me and Callum, jointly. The new one tried to correct that by claiming the original transfer had been intended as a post-marital confirmation of pre-existing shared ownership. It was backdated 3 weeks. It also included a fresh owner affidavit stating I had been temporarily unavailable during the first filing because of emotional distress arising from domestic strain. Domestic strain. They had turned the slap, the pressure, the bank freeze, all of it into a story where I was the unstable obstacle to the thing they had tried to steal. Renata looked at the screen and said, "They're not fixing the fraud, they're laundering the timeline." "That's exactly what this is," Elias said. Mara asked the question that mattered. "Can county stop it before acceptance?" "Yes," he said. "So I'm locking the parcel now." He did it right there in my dining room. Typed 2 entries, confirmed 1 code, then turned the tablet so Renata could see. Parcel status. Administrative fraud hold. No further recording without in-person identity verification and compliance review. I felt something loosen in my chest. Not relief yet. Just the first solid surface under my feet since the restaurant. Callum saw it too. "Fine," he said quickly. "Then stop there. Lock it, void it, whatever. We don't need to make this bigger." That sentence told me more than anything else he had said all day. Not "I'm sorry." Not "my mother pushed this too far." Not "I should never have touched your house." Just, "Don't make it bigger." Darlene made it worse immediately. She pointed at the county tablet and snapped, "Well, that second submission was to clean up the notary issue before the lender overreacted." No one moved. Then Mara said very softly, "Thank you." Darlene blinked. "For what?" "For confirming you knew there was a notary issue before county finished the review." Callum actually closed his eyes. Elias wrote that down. Then Renata stepped toward the banker box and lifted out a slim silver laptop I recognized as Callum's. It was still warm. When she opened it, the screen came alive without a password prompt because, apparently, fraud had taken up all the available room for caution. On the desktop sat 3 PDFs, corrective deed final owner, affidavit clean, if, bank calls. Read this, I stared at the 3rd file. Renata opened it. A script, short bullets, questions and answers, exact phrases. If asked whether owner is present, owner overwhelmed/deferred spouse. If asked about recent title change, family confirmation only. If asked about signature variants, old injury affects handwriting. If asked about business purpose, temporary household restructuring. My hands went cold all over again. They had a script for lying as me. Mrs. Huang, still at the doorway like some glorious suburban guardian spirit, said, "Oh, these people are disgusting." No one corrected her. Mara photographed the screen. Elias did too. Renata bagged the practice signature sheet. Then Mara called someone at the bank and said in the calmest voice imaginable, "Yes, confirm fraud referral, confirm collateral rejection, confirm adverse account review for all connected borrower entities." Darlene stepped forward. "When you do that and you destroy my company." Mara didn't look up. "You tried to borrow against a house your son did not own, using a forged deed and a stolen notary seal. Your company was already walking toward the cliff. I'm just not moving it back." That was the moment Darlene finally understood the calls. The 17 missed calls. The panic. She had not been trying to apologize. She had been trying to get me on the phone quickly enough to stop the machinery. But once banks, county recording, and council all touched the same fraud at the same time, there was no more private family exit ramp. Callum tried one last turn toward me. "Sienna, tell them it was a marital mistake. Tell them we were trying to add me properly and the paperwork got ahead of itself." I looked at him. One at the man who watched his mother slap me in a restaurant because I would not turn my house into collateral for his failing business. At the man who stood in my office while his mother sorted my mail and called it family correction. at the man who had a script open on his laptop teaching him how to impersonate my voice to a bank. Then I said, "No." Just that. No speech, no shaking, no tears. Renata told them to leave the house. This time they did. Not because they found shame, because they had finally found consequences. Darlene left first, chin high, which was almost impressive under the circumstances. Callum left second, carrying nothing. Mara and Elias made sure of that. The banker boxes stayed, the printer stayed. His laptop stayed until images were preserved and copies logged. Misses. So Huang filmed their cars leaving the driveway like it was community service. By 6 that evening, the county had issued a formal challenge hold on the recorded deed. By the next morning, Cascadia sent written confirmation that the line request was denied. The collateral package had been referred internally and externally, and no funds had ever been released against my house. At noon, Renata filed the civil action to void the forged instrument completely. At 3, she filed for exclusive possession of the house during the dispute and an order barring Callum from representing any ownership interest pending resolution. At 5:30, I changed the locks. Not because I thought Callum had a legal right to come back, because I had finally accepted that legal reality and physical reality were not always on the same schedule. 2 weeks later, the forged deed was struck from the chain, officially, cleanly. A court order, not a family debate. Cascadia's fraud unit preserved everything. The county recorder's office referred the e-record and notary issue onward. Darlene's event company lost its banking line. Callum's gym collapsed before the month ended. I filed for divorce before either of them could convince themselves there was still a marriage left to weaponize. And Darlene stopped calling. Not because she found remorse, because panic has an expiration date once it realizes the person it needs is no longer available for manipulation. In the months after that, the story got smaller in the best way. No one yelled in restaurants. No more envelopes, no more simple title updates, just documents, orders. We're in the slow, unglamorous work of undoing what they tried to do in one reckless weekend. Renata got the forged deed removed fully from the title history, and the house stayed exactly what it had always been. Mine. Callum tried once, through counsel, to paint the whole thing as a marital misunderstanding driven by business stress. That died the moment the printer logs, practice signatures, callback script, and witness affidavit all sat on the same table. Darlene's company never really recovered after the bank reviews hit. That was the true source of her panic. Not the slap, not even me. It was the moment she realized my refusal had finally become her paperwork. As for me, I kept the house, kept my name, and learned something I should have learned sooner. Some people do not want partnership, love, or fairness. They want access. Or when the angriest they ever get is when a door they assumed would open stays locked. If you made it this far, tell me in the comments, what would you have done after the slap? Walk out quietly like Sienna did, or expose everything right there in the restaurant? And what hit harder for you? The 17 missed calls, the forged deed, or the lying script on Callum's laptop? If you liked the story, leave a like, subscribe, and stay with me for the next one.